The objective for today is really to explain you why it's important to think about having those capabilities into your organization and how we can address specifically your needs, and also how our solution is designed basically to address your cybersecurity challenge. Just before we start, this session will be recorded. Of course, we want to give an opportunity to all of our guests that couldn't join to watch this session afterwards. It will be cleaned, so of course your name or your visage will not appear, so that we are also safe and be able to share that session into our website afterwards. If you have questions, don't hesitate to use the chat. Daniel will pick up all of these questions. We hope to still have some time at the end of the session to answer some of those questions. If we don't, rest assured, we will take those questions with us, and we will share the answer to all of the community over here, so that you all guys have a complete information about the different questions you may have. Also, we have a guest with us, Paul. Paul is the CEO of Hacknowledge, our partner to deliver this solution, and he will also provide you much more detail about the design of their solution, and also make a demo of the different portals that and what the portal provides during the course of this session. So that being said, let's start this session, and of course start with this first question: is why is a managed detection and response service important nowadays for all organizations? And of course, there are multiple reasons for that. Probably those that are known by some of you, but still interesting to know that today there is still, in average, more than 56 days between the time of the first infection and the time when you have the first detection of that incident. If you listen recently the news, of course you heard about this cyber attack, which targeted one of our government institutions. Of course, they are still making investigation, but what we heard is that probably the first infection occurred already back in 2019. So you see, of course, it was very targeted, very sophisticated, but it still means that there is a huge amount of time until you're aware that you're being infected. And by the way, still half of companies are being notified by an external party. So being a telecom provider, the local authority, or your IT supplier. So that's something also which is still worrying nowadays. And last but not least, I read recently in the paper news that 40% of Belgian companies globally have been hit by a cyber attack at least once in 2020. When I say at least once, most of them have been hacked more than once in the same year. So why now? Well, traditional protection measures, have proven not to be ineffective. Multiple reasons for that. One of them is, of course, the threat actor motivation. They have understood that they can monetize all of their activities through attacks such as ransomware. So they will either encrypt your data or they will steal your data and then threaten you if you don't pay the ransom. So the motivation are getting much higher, and therefore they will find a way to get around your protection measures. Also, techniques and tactics are much more diversified. According to the latest report from Mandiant, they have been able to reconstitute more than 1,800 different tactics and techniques. So can you imagine let's say, the sophistication and the imagination of those different attackers? As mentioned, all of what I just said before, as a consequences, all organizations are today targeted, from small and local to large and global. So it's not just only the large governmental institution or very big companies, but any companies today are targeted by cyber threats. And of course, last but not least, compliance pressure increases in some industries. I'm thinking about the critical infrastructures. which impacting them, but also impacting their suppliers. So, of course, I can already hear most of you saying, yeah, Laurent, we know all that, we understand. You're not the only one saying this, but still, as a company, we have still a couple of roadblocks. The first one probably is still the budget. If you look around on the market in Belgium, if you want to have a good SOC with high quality, the service are probably not available and not affordable for middle market, right? So that's a problem. The second one is the control of your costs. Organization ask really or wonder, okay, it feels like this is low cost, but then at the end of the year, if you add this and you add that and you add different types of component, you're completely losing control of your cost. So you need something which is inclusive and predictable so that you can also justify more easily your return on investment. Timing. We know that building a SOC and building a fully managed detection and response capability takes times. You have to build processes, you have to have the right technology, you have to have the skills. So it all takes time. So it's a challenge in itself, especially for our customers. Then location. Organizations don't want to have a SOC which is managed at the other side of the globe, right? They really need to have the proximity. They need to work with a partner who understands the company culture. So that's still a challenge that we see, especially in Belgium. Expertise, I mentioned that. If you look today's across the, technological landscape, you have so many different types of technologies that you need probably as different types of expertise and skills as you have technologies around the globe. So that is something that as a company, you're not able to maintain, you're not able to sustain. And so you need to find really a solution for that. And then last but not least, I think organization still needs to focus on, their core business, and building a SOC in itself. It's a huge investment in terms of time and effort. So then, of course, that's the right moment to introduce a little bit our partnership. We at Approach, we were looking for the best solution for our market, for our customers. And so we've been looking for a partner which is really adapted. And so that's the reason why we have decided to work together and to create this strong partnership with Hacknowledge. It's really a complementary partnership for really added value for you, for our customers. So you know probably Approach. So we are in this market for 20 years. We are a leader in cybersecurity services in Belgium. We understand our customers. We understand the culture. We understand the business. Hacknowledge is a pure player in managed detection and response services. It's a Swiss-made company, and Paul will explain you how they have designed a solution that creates really strong indication of compromise, whilst reducing as well the number of false positive, and really bring and really able, let's say, to reduce the time between the first infection and the detection. So basically, all of us together, we are not just providing, let's say, a technology stack, but we really want to provide a real service and a close service to our customers. So if and when you have a problem, we are there to help you make the right decision and help you addressing your challenges. So from a location perspective, of course, our headquarters are in Belgium. We are based in the south of Brussels and also in Antwerp. So from a coverage, we cover the full country in Belgium, where we have our blue team constituted by SOC architects, SOC engineers, and you are really there to help building and setting up your SOC capabilities together with our partner. We also have a local incident response management. So whenever you have an issue, we have people speaking the same language, understanding your environment, who are ready to act in a very short time frame. And of course, the technical account management, so the responsibility overall about the service is accounted from Belgium, from Hacknowledge. They have data centers redundant in Switzerland and in Luxembourg. So the service can be delivered in both of these countries. And of course, they have SOC capabilities for monitoring and alerting in Switzerland and in Luxembourg as well. Important to note, I will also come back to that on the next slide, but both companies are ISO 27001 certified without any exclusion on our statement of applicability. So our solution, first of all, we want to start with, let's say, our promises, right? We want to have this solution designed to address our market without any compromise on the quality of the service that you will get. And that, I think, is the most important, and that's really our commitment to our customers. Secondly, your data, as mentioned before, stays in Europe. From a, let's say, data protection regulation perspective, there will be no issues. It's either in Luxembourg or in Switzerland. We have a local team of experts, and basically we want to act as an extension of your own team. So we really count on that proximity. Human intelligence, of course, it's built on 20 years of experience with a 360 degrees view and vision on cybersecurity. So of course, we want also to advise and provide the best advice from a detect and response and how that affect also your risk management capabilities as an example. Proximity and culture, it's key to understand your business. That was already said. And as mentioned, we are both, the service that you will get is fully ISO 27001 certified. So how are we doing that? And perhaps I will let now Paul to explain and to provide you a little bit more details.
Sure, thank you, Laurent, and good morning, everybody. So I will try to briefly explain how we are doing that and the service that we are delivering. So as you already understood, we are a managed service. So what you are buying are the alerts, the expertise, but the tuning of the SIM, the setup of the sensors, the upgrade, the updates, that's part of our job. Your job will be to focus on the alerts that we are going to send to you and fix the problem. We are a managed service. We are a local company. So the headquarters of the company is in Switzerland, and we have a subsidiary in Luxembourg. And we have two types of setup. On-premise, and in that case, you will have an appliance that will be set up in your environment, in your data center, in your office, or hosted in the cloud. And in that case, the log will be sent to an appliance that will be in our data center in Luxembourg or in Switzerland. The service will be exactly the same. There is no difference. The only difference is, let's say, political. Some customers will want the data to stay on site, and some customers will want the data to be sent out of their network. It's up to you. And when I mean data, it's not data, it's just logs. We are just receiving the logs. Of course, we don't have access to your data. You have a full access to the SIM. So you will have the opportunity to run any query, any search you want in the SIM, and you have full access to all the data that are in the SIM. We have 3 possible flavors for the SIM. By default, we use our own stack, which is built on Elasticsearch and different open sources tool. We can also use Microsoft Sentinel if you are mainly using the Azure cloud. Or we can also use Splunk, and we have all certifications for all those products. We have developed a customer portal. I will show you the portal just after. And the portal is the central interface to our service. In the portal, you will find all the alerts that have been sent. You have access to the Sandbox. You will see the status and the health status of the sensors and appliances that have been set up on your network. This is the central interface to our service. Our service will also come with our own sensors. We have developed our own sensors, and they have different features. like IDS, honeypots, canaries. I will give you more details about the sensor later on. And the goal of the sensor is not to replace the device that you already have. If you already have Darktrace, if you already have Vectra or whatever, good for you. We will build some use case with those technologies. But in addition to that, we will also use our own sensors. As Laurent said before, our service is built with human intelligence and advice. Human intelligence because you already understood that no alert will be sent to you without first being checked by our analyst 24/7. The volume of alert is unlimited. You will receive as many alerts as you need. And in addition to that, you have a volume of service that you can use to get help to manage those alerts. And that service will be delivered both by Approach and Hacknowledge. And all of that is packaged as a yearly fee that includes everything. We wanted the cost to be predictable, so you know in advance what you are going to pay for the service that we are delivering. I think we can move to the next slide. So how we do it, as I said before, first we will use your own logs and we will create use cases based on the devices and the systems and the security products that you already have. So if you already have an antivirus, a UTM, a firewall, whatever, an EDR, we will create use cases based on that. Clearly, our approach is based on use case. It's driven by the use case. We believe that you don't need 120 use cases. You need a good selection of use cases, and it will be our job to help you choose the use cases that are relevant for you. So first, we will exploit your logs and create use cases based on your logs. And in addition to that, we will set up as many sensors as you need. We made sure that the price of the sensor is not a blocker, and we really encourage our customer to set up as many sensors as they need for two main reasons. The first one is that it will help us to be much more granular. Let's imagine that you only have one central sensor or one central dark trace on your core network. You will never be able to see the traffic between your workstation in a remote office. Our goal is to set up one sensor per remote office, per location, anywhere that is needed. And by doing that, we will see traffic that we wouldn't be able to see otherwise. And in addition to that, the second reason to set up as many sensors as you need is that it will decrease the likeliness of false positives. Because when you get an alert that is raised by your logs plus several sensors, you have a better possibility to do correlation and you have a better detection. So clearly we will combine your logs, the logs generated by our sensors, in order to improve the detection of lateral movement, to improve correlation and provide you with a better detection. I will give you more information regarding the sensors. The sensors are a custom development from Hacknowledge. Of course, it's a PC, but it's a PC that has been optimized for what it is doing. So it's a PC with an 8-core CPU, with a large SSD, and with a large volume of RAM. In fact, all the logs are first stored in the RAM and then flushed to the SSD so that we don't kill the SSD disk. And the sensors have 4 10 gig interface, 6 gigabit interface, and today we have sensors in more than 30 countries. The sensors are available as hardware sensors or virtual sensors, but today most of the sensors have been set up as hardware sensors because, as I said before, the hardware is optimized for what it is doing. So we prefer to set up hardware sensors every time that it is possible. And the sensors have different features. First, they are in charge of collecting, filtering, and caching the logs. Whatever SIEM you may be using, could be Sentinel or Vision or Splunk, it's really interesting to send the logs first to the sensors and then forward the log from the sensor to the SIEM, because it will allow us to have a local cache. So even if there is a network outage, we don't lose the logs, they are still on the sensor. It will allow us to do some filtering at the sensor level. Imagine that we collect all the logs using Sysmon, for example. Maybe all the logs are not interesting for our use cases. In that case, we will have the possibility to filter the logs at the sensor level. And finally, we also have the possibility to do some enrichment at the sensor level. The idea is to send a log that is much more complete and much more detailed to the analyst and to the SIEM. Each sensor will also act as an IDS. This is an out-of-band IDS, so even if the sensor crashes, there is no impact on your network, and the IDS is managed by us. So it's our job to daily update the IDS, to remove the false positive, and to select the rules that are relevant in your environment. The IDS are fed with different sources, with different feeds, some that we are buying, like Proofpoint, for example, some that we are exchanging with other SOC and other CERT. That's the case, for example, with FIRST, because we are a member of FIRST, or with Circle, and some that we are directly receiving from the government. In Switzerland, for example, that's the case with Melanie. Each sensor will also act as a honeypot. In that case, I guess you all know what a honeypot is. The idea is to simulate some fake vulnerabilities, to create some traps. And we will be able to simulate 15 different types of services, including fake web servers, fake voice over IP servers, database, and so far and so on. And the idea is to say that a normal employee should never ever try to exploit a vulnerability on a MySQL database. And the day it is happening, we are 99% sure that something really bad is happening on your network. Finally, each sensor is also acting as a vulnerability scanner. And that's interesting for two main reasons. First, because it will allow you to have a global view regarding your patching and to be able to correctly manage your patching, because vulnerability management is still an issue for most of our customers. And it's also very interesting for us because it will help us to better qualify the alerts that will be sent to you. When, for example, we see an alert regarding a machine on the IDS, for example, and we know that all the patches are missing, that's definitely not the same priority than when we see that all the patches have been duly applied. I think we can move to the next slide. And as I said before, the central interface to our service is the customer portal. And I will try to show you the customer portal live. In the portal, you will see a lot of information, including the result of the vulnerability scan, the alerts, and a lot of other information. I will try to share the screen with you. So I will connect to the portal using a demo account. And I have to authenticate using an SMS or a second factor authentication. I hope I will receive the SMS. Yes. And I'm connecting to the portal. The first part of the portal is the cockpit. This is where you will find some indicators, some scores regarding the number of open incidents, the status of the findings, the health level of the sensors and appliances that have been set up in your environment. And this is something dynamic. So you can add additional widgets, and the idea is to display that on a screen in your office, or to be able to check real time the status of what we are doing for you. Then you can see there all the vulnerabilities. These are the results of the scans that have been done from inside your network with the sensors and from outside your network, because we will also scan you from the internet. You have the possibility to filter by zone. A zone is just a logical group of machines. You can create as many zones as you want. And here you can see all the results for each zone. Of course, you have the possibility to filter by host name, by IP, by title, by whatever you want. You can filter by vulnerability severity, and you have two very interesting information there. The date when the vulnerability was first seen and the date when the vulnerability was last seen. And with those dates, we will be able to tell you if your patching is working or not. You will be able to see when a vulnerability is duly patched or remediated, or when it's not the case. If you click on the vulnerability, then you have all the detail. You can link that vulnerability to an internal ticketing system on your side, or you can even type some comment there and explain why you will maybe not remediate that vulnerability. If needed, you can also manually change the status of the vulnerability to remediated or ignored, because you know that this will never be fixed for some reasons. Of course, that's bad, but in real life, that's happening sometime. For each vulnerability, you also have the possibility to assign some tags. A tag could be assigned manually. I can create a tag PHP and assign that tag to all the machines that are running PHP, or you can also create some tags that are dynamic. For example, you can say that all the machines with the name that start with dev are development machine, or all the machines with this name that start with DB are databases, or all the machines with port X and Y open are probably running software Z, and you can assign that tag to the machine. That's interesting because you will be able to only allow some specific users to see the machine with some specific tags, but I will come back to that later on. Then you have the security incident. There you will see all the incidents that are relevant for your company. So for each incident, you will see the severity, the outcome, some tags that are assigned to the incident, the name of the analyst that has been working on the incident. And if you click on the incident, then you have all the detail of the exchange that you had with the analyst. Then sensor and servers. Here you will see the health status of the sensors and appliances that have been set up on your network. Bug and request is for everything which is not related to a security incident. If you discover a bug inside the portal, if you want us to investigate on something which is not a security incident, this is the place. Then you have a very important part, the use cases. Here you will find first the use case catalog. This is a list of use cases that you can choose to activate. This is a default list. If something is not in the list, it doesn't mean that we can't do it. It's just that it's not available by default. These are the use cases that are common to the majority of our customers. And for each use case, if you click on the use case, I will choose that one, for example. You have all the details regarding that use case. So the attack technique and tactic, the typology, the source, the detailed requirement. So what is the exact event ID that we need for that use case? The response severity for that use case, the default response severity for that use case, the typical false positive rate for the average of our customer for that use case. Well, you have all the detail regarding the use case. And of course, what you don't want to do is to select all the use case and click on request implementation. If you do that, you will have a lot of use case, but it won't be in your interest because some of them will generate a lot of false positive. So this is clearly our job, approach, and Hacknowledge to help you choose the use case that are relevant for you. Once you have chosen a use case, it will be in that part, the manage. Here you will have a live view of all the use cases that have been set up for your company. And for each use case, you will see the status. The status can be requested. You just requested the use case. In progress, it means that we are working on it to set up the use case. On hold, we are waiting for something on your side to set up the use case. To test, implemented, or removed. Something important, before considering the use case as implemented, we will always trigger the use case at least once. So we will test the entire chain of the use case, from the log generation to the sensor to the SIM. And once we know it is working okay, then it will be marked as implemented. Also, something very important, on a regular basis, we will retest all the use cases to make sure that they are still working, because there is nothing worse than believing that you are covered by a use case and realizing that, in fact, that's not the case. Then you have the sandbox. Here you have the possibility to manually send any executable PDF or URL to a sandbox, to a private sandbox. The sandbox will give you a clear status if the program is malicious or not. And in case it is malicious, then we can extract the IOCs from there and feed our sensors with those IOCs. This is something manual. This is not an automatic sandbox. The goal is really to manually check if something is malicious or not. File, here you will have the possibility to share any file with us. And you have the guarantee that it won't go outside of our network. So if you need to share with us a malware, if you want to share with us some sensitive information, a report, that's the place where you will share that information. Then admin, you will have the possibility to manage your own users and the possibility to assign some specific group to those users. And here you can link some specific tags to the groups. And every month or every quarter, we will generate a custom report for you. And something very important, it's not a report that we just send by email and you take care of that. This is a report that will be presented to you by Approach, by your local partner. And the goal of the report is to discuss with you what is working and what is not working, to discuss with you what could be the next improvement, what are the next use cases that should be interesting for you. This is really the goal of the report, and this is why we believe this can only work if you have a local partner that understand your job, that understand your business, and that will be able to correctly provide you with interesting advices. Do I have time, Laurent, to show a sample report?
We still have 20 minutes left, and I still have a couple of slides. So if we want
to you.
If we want to keep at least 5 minutes for Q&A, then I don't think so. But perhaps for those who are interested, there are some sample report that we are, and I would be also happy to share with those interested in a separate meeting. Because I don't think that we would, or perhaps only 1 minute, but I don't think in 1 minute you will have the time to make a proper walk through the.
No, maybe something important. The report has an executive summary part, and this is a very important part of the report because you will see a scoreboard and we will show you your real security status. If you are good or bad, we have no problem to say it, and we will compare you with yourself based on the previous report and with our other customers of the same vertical or of the same size. So if you are good, we have no problem to tell you that you are good. And if you are not, that's the same. And sometimes it could be a very interesting tool for you to show to your management what you are doing or what needs to be done.
Perhaps, Paul, you could show just that section to.
Yeah, sure.
The team, I think still it's worthwhile.
Okay.
Yes,
I will just show the executive summary in that case. So here is a sample anonymous report. And the first part of the report is the executive summary. Here, as I said, you will find your security level. That score is calculated taking into account the number of incidents that you had, the time to process those incidents, your exposure on the internet, and different other parameters. Then you have a clear overview regarding different topics. It goes from green to purple. When you are green, you are good. When it's purple, you are not so good. Then you have a clear view of the volume of professional service that is still remaining on your contract. As I said before, that volume of professional service is for advice. This is not for the alerting. So it's when you need help to set up a new use case or for advice. Then you have an overview of your system compliance. How many unique vulnerabilities were found on your environment? How do you compare with yourself on the previous period, and how do you compare with our other customers of the same vertical or same size? Then you have an overview of the incidents. How many incidents? Were there false positive or true positive? And again, comparison with yourself and other customers. Key observations are obviously key observation, important points that you need to know. And then you can also see the funnel of alerts and events. How many events were generated by your environment during the last period? How many alerts were managed by our analyst? And at the end, how many incidents were sent to you? And of course, an incident can be linked to different alerts. Sometimes one incident is generated by 5, 6, or 10 alerts. So I think this is it for a really short presentation of the executive summary.
Thank you, Paul. So, and
yes,
so this report, of course, will be discussed with our local technical account manager before being presented to our customers. It will be reviewed and discussed with our partner Hacknowledge. It will be also enriched with our knowledge of our customers, and then it will be presented to you, right? So that's the main goal, is that we can interface with the service that is provided on the back end, of course. To move to the next slide. So as just a short summary, so the service we deliver is as you understood already, all-in-one managed detection and response services. So first point important to remember, it's a fully managed service, including a managed SIEM in which you will still have full access as well. So you have still access to your data, including additional sensors, as many as we think is relevant to your business. We will not cover that in this meeting, but of course there are additional features and additional services that we can deliver out of the managed detect and response, thinking about really a CSIRT, incident response services as an example. The monitoring is done 24/7, or it could also be done 8.5. It's something that is possible, and it really depends on also your capability. It is clear that if there is nobody within your organization able to pick up an alert in the middle of the night, if you're located only in Belgium, then of course perhaps you don't need a full 24/7. So we offer those two possibilities. Usually we start with an 8.5 during a proof of concept, and then eventually we see how it evolves together with the company in terms of integrating with your processes to make it a 24/7. As mentioned, the service is also delivered with dedicated local senior expertise and including professional advisory. Just to finish, we talked about the pricing model a little bit earlier on. Again, here we wanted to make it simple and predictable. So it's two phases. There is a first, which is the CapEx, which is basically the setup fee, and it's a one-time cost. And then there is an OpEx, which includes everything. So everything that Paul and I explained to you in this session is included. There will be no bad surprises at the end of the month when you get the invoice. Just looking at time, I think we are right on time. So the next steps, well, I guess from everything that you guys heard today, I would like you to ask yourself those 6 questions. The first one is, do you have the capability effectively to monitor your IT environment for potential threats today? Do you know what to look for and where to find it? As mentioned, we are focusing really on use cases. Does your team spend more time on real alerts or on false positive? Are you sure that you're not compromised as we speak? Is your team capable of responding to real attack? And then last but not least, and it's very important, are you sure that you're making the best use with your existing capabilities? Because probably that's not the case. So if the answer is no to one or more of those questions, then I guess the first step and the first thing to do is to call approach. We will help you to gather the requirements, to understand your business, to understand what are your capabilities that you have today. Do you have a SIEM? Do you have an EDR? Do you have a DLP? Where are your crown jewels? So we will really understand what are your needs and what is your scope. Typically, of course, it's just an estimate. That's something that may take up to one to 2 weeks. Then we will start what we call a proof of concept. Typically, and there, Paul, correct if I'm wrong, but we will start with 1 or 2 sensors that will be deployed in strategic locations. Start configuring the SIEM or deploying the SIEM if you don't have, starting with a few common use cases, and then build up, let's say, the processes around the managed detection and response. That is something which lasts around 2 months because it takes time. It really takes time here to understand each other, making sure that we are monitoring what we have to monitor and that we have the return on what you are expecting to get. Once we are clear, we have this step that we call the POC to prod. So it's really finalizing the implementation. So implementing the latest use cases. It's about deploying additional sensors if we believe that we need more sensors, and it's also to set up completely the portal and these type of elements. And that yet again may take between 2 to 4 weeks. Again, in average, it really depends from one customer to another. And then, like I said, then we move into a service mode where let's say you will have the local expertise, so technical account management, professional advisory from approach, incident response locally as well from approach, and the monitoring and alerting from the SOC offices of Hacknowledge in Luxembourg or in Switzerland. And I think that completes, yeah, and basically we are right on time. That completes this session. So perhaps I will leave time for Q&A. Don't hesitate, of course. Just perhaps one thing I forgot to mention is when we talk about our market is, and there are many SOC services around there, multiple. So we are not competing against, the very large and broad SOC such as Atos or Airbus or IBM. That's not the market that we are targeting, and that we are not necessarily competing against us. So we are really targeting companies which are basically 95% of the business also in Belgium and in Switzerland, by the way, similar. So it goes between, let's say, more or less 100 users, sometimes a little bit less, but let's take a number, low 100 users up to 20 or 25K users. So it's really a solution that is adapted for what we believe is the right market in Belgium. Just wanted to insist on that.
Laurent, we have a question on the chat from Dirk.
Okay, what is the question? Because I can't see.
He's asking, do you have a price indication?
If I have a price indication, but it's always delicate to provide price because the dependencies are also depending on the, let's say, the gigabytes that we generate, the number of reporting that you need to have, the number of users, so the number of, let's say, endpoints that we are going to generate as a logs. So that's quite difficult. Not sure if we can provide that right here. But Dirk, because I know a little bit your organization, I can certainly provide an indication offline specifically to your company, which I know, of course.
We have a question come through from David asking, how does it work in a fully cloud environment?
Perhaps, Paul, I can let you answer this one.
Yes, sure. Depends on the cloud. Are we talking about Azure or AWS, or is it a specific cloud? Maybe I can give you more detail depending on the cloud we are talking about.
I guess it's a general question, Paul, but
globally.
Then, yeah.
Well, we are able to receive logs anyway from any cloud provider. Could be Azure or AWS. We are able to receive the logs and to create use case based on that. Then, depending on the cloud that you are mainly using, if you are 60 or 90% using Azure, could make sense to select Sentinel as the SIEM, which we are able to do. And but for us, it's not a problem to get logs from cloud solution. In fact, we will fetch the log and get the log in the SIEM that we decided to use with you, and we have use cases for different cloud. The more popular, at least in Switzerland and Luxembourg, are definitely Azure and AWS. We don't see a lot of Google Cloud there. So to be honest, we don't have a lot of use cases for Google Cloud. But even if we don't have use case today, if you need some, we will develop it. So it's not something blocking for us.
And I guess, Paul, Laurent speaking, the underlying question is, do we need sensors also in the cloud? And if yes, how do we do that?
It depends. It depends. Unfortunately, we could use some virtual sensors in the cloud. However, most of the time, it doesn't really make sense to set up an IDS in a cloud environment. So we prefer to use sensor for the offices, for the data centers. For the cloud, it could make sense to set up honeypots to do some vulnerability scanning. So we'll probably need some sensors, but less than if you have a physical environment. Some virtual sensors, of course.
Mm-hmm. A final word for me is first of all to really thank you all for your participation, and we hope that it was a very interesting and useful session for you. Like I said, and it would be my pleasure also to have a separate meeting with you and go more in depth, and indeed, as needed, make a scoping exercise so that you can have some sort of price indication on the solution that we are providing to you. So Dirk, I have it on my to-do list, and for the others, do not hesitate. You can contact me directly or your account manager from Approach, and we'll make sure that you also have a point of contact if you don't, so that you can contact Approach to have more information on the on this service. And other than that, then I can enjoy your lunch if you didn't eat yet. Wish you a very good afternoon and a very good rest of the week. And I see you soon.